All right. Welcome back, viewers. This is our episode number 5, and this is a very special episode. We have Mr. Brandon Rose with us. He's the founder of Rose Gold Apparel, and we would be having a very interesting conversation about how to set up e-commerce, and not just e-commerce, how to bring in luxury into e-commerce, right? Okay, so Anmol, I'll let you begin by giving a more detailed introduction about Brandon and how we have met.
Of course, I would
Yeah,
love to do that. So it all started
right.
in 2016. Brandon was running the Rose Gold Apparel, and I met him on Instagram. So it's a pretty interesting story, like how it all started. I just reached out to him. Hey, Brandon, I saw that you do this. And I think at that point of time, Brandon was in college. So that was really interesting to, start talking with him because I was very young and still exploring what should I be doing with my life? Where should I go further? So at that point of time, I started talking to him. I started to know because I was really interested how things are in US. Basically, with, any foreign country makes you excited when you are a kid. So
Right.
I started talking to him. We started to have a lot of calls as well. We shared numbers, and today here we are. So, like another thing about Brandon that I would like to let our audience know is that he has started the Rose Group Marketing. So, in which we both have partnered. We will be letting you know about our partnership further in the podcast as well. So,
Let's save that for later. Yes, yes,
yeah,
we have to talk
so
about it, but let's save it for the desserts.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. Yes. So Brandon, like I said, you have set up an e-commerce, but e-commerce is not special. I mean, bringing luxury to e-commerce, that is something that you have cracked. So, how about you begin with introducing your journey and about becoming an entrepreneur, and what made you build Rose Gold Apparel and what it is today?
For sure, yeah. So I appreciate you guys having me on. So I grew up in London, England, lived there for 10 years, and I moved to the United States, to Dallas, Texas in 2005. And so I feel like, so I started Rose Gold Apparel when I was a sophomore at college at the University of Alabama. And I think it all originated from kind of the European fashion. I love the classy buttoned up suit look, nice shoes, like leather shoes and belts and stuff like that. I've always had an affinity for watches. And so I saw a rose gold watch one day and it just kind of caught my eye. And this was back in 2016 when rose gold was still considered feminine. And there wasn't many like men's accessories in it. And obviously I loved the watch, but I couldn't find any shoes or belt to kind of match my watch. And that's when I had the idea for Rose Gold Apparel, and kind of really pushing the masculinity of it and what I love and bringing in my, European fashion look as well. Touching on luxury and e-commerce, though, it was definitely a difficult path. And being so young and obviously not having finances, it was tough. And there's a lot of things that I didn't take into account, as far as just the sheer, capacity of holding all these shoe boxes and stuff like that. Once you have one shoe, you have it in size 8, size 8.5, size 9, 9.5, 10. It just starts adding up really quickly. And then you start looking at, obviously product cost, but then, shipping costs and these kinds of things as well. And, importing leathers, and it started to get quite complicated quite quickly. And that's something I definitely learned adjusting. And now in my new ventures is looking for things that make more sense and doing more market research and reconnaissance ahead of time. The thing with rose gold for me is it's just such a passion project. It's something I really love. I love the color rose gold. So I think I'll always have it. And I definitely plan on doing circling back around to it and doing another big jump with it in the future. But for right now, I've obviously started the Rose Group marketing, doing digital marketing, and we can touch more on the kind of partnership with you guys. And then a couple other smaller e-commerce brands. We can touch into that as well. But the things I've learned with these other companies is, and not to circle too much around, but with Rose Gold, what was interesting and what got me started kind of down this other marketing path was because I was in college and didn't have obviously a lot of funding and everything like that. A lot of my marketing was done just organic on social media. And that's actually how we connected, just because I was on social media a lot. And it was nice because that was back when, social media was still quite new and raw, and the ability to go viral and stuff like that was a lot easier. And so I was lucky to obviously learn the algorithm and kind of learn social media and how things work and hashtags and all these kinds of things. So as the platform started to evolve, I understood it and was able to kind of ride that wave. And so now I've been able to obviously help other companies grow and stuff like that as well. And it's a passion of mine just to see people kind of bring their ideas to fruition and have them scale, you know?
Wonderful, wonderful.
That's
Yes.
wonderful.
What were the? I know you've already spoken about the challenges, but what intrigues me, like I said, bringing luxury to e-commerce. So bringing luxury to a brick and mortar store is quite easy. You put up an expensive chandelier, probably Italian marble, and some beautiful stuff out there, and you. It's not that easy, but still, it is very tangible. But in e-commerce, we're dealing with a very intangible experience. And so just if you can elaborate a little bit on that, how do you work on that? Yes.
And that was another thing that I didn't take into account either is obviously the luxury apparel space is a hard one to crack. And so even with the marketing, right, it had to all be kind of dialed in, top-notch stuff. So it was quite expensive to get models and good videographers and even just luxury sets with cars and stuff like that. And it was all a great experience, but it was very hard to create the luxury experience virtually through social media. To me, when I think of luxury, right, it's like going to a high-end store, and it's the whole experience of they sit you down, whether they bring you champagne or something, you go through a lookbook. It's this whole experience. And so trying to replicate that online is very difficult. And so for me, it was obviously creating a quality product. I think a quality product speaks for itself. And then the way to replicate that experience for me was kind of through the packaging, which again is something that can get quite expensive.
Yes.
Making sure you have the right packaging, so when they do receive the product, they experience something as similar as possible. And I was trying to connect with the marketing more of a lifestyle and a feeling. So for me, because that's how I always looked at the brand, and obviously I think that's the most important thing is being the founder is like, I always, when I think of Rose Gold, I feel, confident and good and crisp and dialed in. And I wanted other people to have that same experience. And so I think that was the biggest challenge, right, is just trying to make sure other people feel the same way I do about the brand. But at the same time is letting the brand speak for themselves, because in fashion, I feel like it's all about how you feel, right? It's not necessarily what you think looks good or what you think looks bad. It's about how they feel when they wear it. And if they feel confident, feel good, I mean, I think that's fashion right there. So
I think that is spot on. And this is one of the conversations we were having with one of our clients today. This is something I told them that, don't let your business be what you want it to be, because your business is a living organism in itself, right? Let it grow and find its own path. It's like letting your kid grow and find its path,
Exactly.
So you were spot on. Yeah. True.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, Anmol, sorry I had interrupted you when you were trying to say something. It's
pretty good. Well, I can also touch on kind of how we met. I mean, it's kind of a crazy story on how things kind of happen. So I was spending a lot of time on social media, following accounts, liking, commenting, hashtag, doing everything I could, right? Because I always looked at it as every new follower, every new thumb click could be a potential client. And so for me, obviously selling a high, price product, I was like, you just never know when that another like or that other comment could be, another $300 or $400 sale, right? So it was very inspirational for me just to keep going and connecting with as many people as possible. And finding Emil here with, being his own young entrepreneur, I just thought it was a mutual connection that was worth having. And it was really fun, obviously, to kind of grow through the years. I can't believe it's already been so long, to be honest with you. It kind of just seems like yesterday. And it's cool to see, obviously, I've kind of grown and done different things. And it's cool to see you still pushing along and how our paths have kind of reconnected to kind of partner together. It's been great.
Yeah, that's the craziest part, like how our paths got connected. I never thought that like this we will be working together.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't think so either. But then it's also funny because then when we did bring that discussion up, it's almost like, why didn't we do this sooner? But I think it was more my path, right? I know you've been kind of strong on the digital marketing side of things. And for me, I think it was being an entrepreneur in e-commerce, figuring it out myself, helping others. And then that light bulb kind of went off and I'm like, I should just start a company. And then when I started working on my own stuff and getting overwhelmed, I was like, how can I delegate? And I don't know why it took me so long to be like, I know a guy, So I think it's great it came full circle. Yeah.
Everything happens in its own time, right? It's like the alchemist story.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect example.
Right.
So it's so interesting. Like at that point of time, I remember I was helping my dad with his, Itra business. So I also had a conversation with Brandon. Okay, what should I do now? So Brandon used to advise me a lot, and even with when I was doing digital marketing and things were not going good in my life as well. So I used to talk to Brandon. Okay, man, this is what is happening. What should I do? What do you suggest? So these were the conversations that we were having at that point of time, and like that relationship, I think that got stronger there and we built it, and today we are here. That we got connected.
I think it's somewhere where people can learn as well. And I don't even know if I would say I was doing it consciously. It was more of just kind of connecting with other hardworking entrepreneurs as well, and that are genuine. And it's amazing, being in different continents, how, we have a very similar path and it just connected. But I think it's important for people to touch on their network like that, because you never know, you never know the people in your life, how it can help you get to where you want to go and also help them at the same time. And so for me, I mean, even just talking about crypto, right? And everything that's kind of happened in the past, and hiring and firing and different avenues of marketing, even just for me talking about it, I feel like it also helps me as well. And so for people to sometimes, I've kind of seen it too, where they think they're too busy for other people and stuff like that. I find, I've also heard that, teaching, right, is the best way of learning. And so for me to jump out of my business and think of yours and be like, what would I do to market if I was in your position? I think it's just really cool. And it got my head turning, obviously, at a younger age. And now when you fast forward, we're actually implementing those forms of marketing today. So, I think it's been a great relationship, and hopefully many more years,
Yes. Yeah. No, it's, many
Makes
more
you
years.
believe in the divine intervention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like Ashwin, if you, I don't know if you remember in the early days when you just joined us as an advisor. So I used to tell that one of my friends, he lives in US, and he told me that we should be doing this for our sales. We should be doing this for our marketing. Like we should, I still remember Brandon wrote me this big message on WhatsApp that I was scrolling, and he told me how to properly email market, and what should I do in the emails? I should put my testimonials and all of those things. I still remember after that.
What's also interesting too is because in my bio, I was a CEO and founder, I was getting a lot of these messages of, people trying to help me with my marketing and do this and that. And knowing that you were in that space, I knew what would work and what wouldn't for me, just because I would get so many, and a lot of the times I wouldn't even open them. I'd just, delete, spam, whatever. Right. And so I try to help as much as I could on getting, me to actually dive in a little bit farther. And that's where I think pulling in the testimonials. And what's funny is over the past few years, I've seen that messaging change. I've seen people, like, now they'll even send you a Loom video of, hey, I went through your website and I saw this, this, and this. And they're giving a lot more effort up front, which, right. In the past, that used to be just a cold email. And
even that has massively improved the quality of the leads that we get. If you see, like earlier, there was such a manual process to qualify these leads. Now, if I send them a Loom video, they already know what value I am providing. We also tested this out in the past, but though it didn't work really well for us, but yeah, we also tested this out. So now, Brandon, you can tell more about the marketing you implemented while building Rose Gold Apparel. That would be something interested to tell our audience about.
Yeah, so the marketing basically started. I was trying to do as much as I could, because the inventory costs were obviously the expensive part when it comes to the monetary side of things. And so for marketing, I try to keep it as minimal as possible. So now that I think about it, yeah, it really added up quickly because the inventory costs were expensive. Because once you build out one, like even a belt, right? If you have one design of a belt, you got to build in, multiple sizes from 28 to 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42. I mean, it gets, and then you start adding multiple designs of that. So that was actually very expensive. And then when I came to the marketing, again, I tried to relay that high end experience. So whether it be, renting luxury cars and making sure I have a high end photographer and videographer and making sure the models are there and stuff like that. It definitely added up quite quickly. So when I came to actually pushing the product, and I think this is an area that I kind of did things backwards, had great content, great product, but I just didn't have it. I almost like ran out of my ad spend to push it. And so that's where I was spending a lot of time just organically connecting with accounts. What was really interesting for me, though, was within the first 6 to 8 months, I literally only had one loafer, and it was actually almost like a sample. I didn't even place the full order yet. I had like a sample and a couple belts. And I got picked up by, it was GQ, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar magazine in the UK. Wow. And so I remember I was, 6 to 8 months into this journey, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be in like GQ. But like, I didn't even have product yet. But it was amazing that someone could see the vision with me at that point. And I think that was a really big motivator. And I remember, I think it wasn't much. I want to say it was like 800 or something like that to get like, a small little section in the magazine. And I remember people telling me not to do it. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I think it will help the brand and using the as seen in GQ and Elle and stuff like that. I thought it would definitely help with credibility. And so I did it. And again, it might not have been the best allocation of resources at the time, but it's one of those things. I got sales for years after that. And I think it did elevate the brand in a way to connect myself with those type of magazines. And so doing it organically, getting in publications like that, it was nice to get some little traction going. And then I started kind of running ads a little bit as well. And that's what's funny too, is when you kind of fast forward to the digital marketing side of things, is because I used other digital marketing agencies in the past. I know what I like and what I don't like. And to be honest, in the whole entrepreneurial world, I feel like there's kind of a stigma around it. The same way there is about like photographers charging too much. It's almost like, same with agencies, is that they don't care enough. They charge you a crazy retainer for the month, and then the results are the results. And so something that I like to do is be really hands-on with my clients and make sure they are aware of the numbers and what's actually going on. Sorry, not to get too veered away, but I'll stay on Rose Gold.
No, that's perfect.
Everything is quite relevant, and I completely agree with you. And I think there's a reason why people have such notions about the digital marketers, because there are too many quacks in the industry, and they have given a bad name to the trade itself. But yes, so that is where we come in. People like you and us, we want to change that notion and that is why I like to talk about experience. And my hotelier background, it always, pinches me to talk and stress about experience, because that is the most important part. One of the most important, if not the most important part of the trade. Yes, experience has to be good.
For sure.
Agreed. Yes.
And that's one of those things. It's like everyone wants to get there quick, and I mean, who doesn't, right? You hear the whole get rich quick thing. Well, it's like, of course, it's awesome, but there is something to be said about doing the work and doing the experience and finding the connections and actually failure. I feel like people. I mean, I have heard it in motivational speakers and stuff, but people don't touch on the importance of failure. And I think it's such a learning point. And I don't want it to be just kind of one of those like little snippets where it's like, oh, you learn from failure. It's like, no, when you really dive into it, like, what did I do necessarily wrong, or what could I have done different to tweak it? There's a book I read years ago, and it talks about pivots in the business. And it's one of those things that can be very crucial on. You can pivot to the upside, you can pivot to the downside, but it's very important you pivot and you evolve. And if you just look at social media over the past few years, right? Like the things that we were doing, back in 2016, you can't even do today. If you tried to like and comment as much as I did now, you'd get blocked, right? So things change, and you have to evolve, and you have to learn with it,
Yeah, right. The new thing is Reels. You need to do a lot of video.
and UGC, and that's what's really interesting, is the marketing that I was doing was so expensive. I was getting models and renting cars and,
Like here, like as you speak, you can talk about the advertisements. Like I was really fascinated when I saw that advertisement you did on the private jet and with Lamborghinis. You can talk about that as well here.
The Rolls Royce.
Yeah, those were awesome. And again, I think I try to really captivate that experience and that feeling of, if you wear rose gold, you should feel like this good kind of thing. But now things have changed, right? And you're seeing, user generated content and testimonials performing the best. You're seeing the iPhone, self videos performing very well on ads, even organically, not even paid ads, right? So, it's funny how things kind of change a little bit. And that kind of like leads me into my next point. I didn't know if you guys were going to go there, but when I think of, if I can give some advice to people starting off, it's kind of diving into the market research a little bit more and finding a product that really has a need, you know what I mean, is really solving a problem. And then getting clarification on that, whether that's even, getting a sample and creating a website before ordering inventory, whether it's jumping into Facebook groups and asking questions and getting some validation to know if you would have some sales. I've even seen some people run, a handful of ads, right? Spend, $500 to $1,000 on ads, see how many sales you would actually have. You can refund them, say, you're out of stock or whatever. But at least you have some validation before spending, even tens of thousands of dollars on inventory and getting stuck with it. And I think it's important that people kind of go through those different avenues and learn their audience. And I find a lot of people, they'll have an idea and they immediately just want to jump to like website and marketing. And it's like, you really need to grow, your customer base and your audience and build a community around your company and your brand. And it'll allow you to know your customer more.
Right.
But a lot of people aren't patient. And I think it's important to be patient at the beginning. Yeah. And then once you get moving, move, you know what I mean? It's important to execute, but in the beginning, it's really important to be patient and think about it. And I'm someone too, where I see an idea or I see an opportunity and I get excited to jump. And I think that's being an entrepreneur. I mean, it is important when you see opportunity to take it, right? Like for crypto was an example where you see an opportunity, if you wait too long, you're going to miss it. So it's definitely important to execute, but there is the right amount of time that it takes to make sure you understand everything. Because if you jump too soon, you'll make some mistakes, and I definitely did, and I just hope other people don't.
You brought up another keyword that is community building. So that's one of the most important factors. Could you elaborate a little bit more? Because especially when you're building a luxury experience, or if you're setting up a luxury brand, community building comes by it's of the prior most importance, right?
For sure.
So yes, I mean, you talk about any luxury brand, be it the Four Seasons and the hotels, or the Harleys or the Rolls Royces of the world. They have all built a community and aura around themselves, right? So could you just elaborate a little bit more about it?
Yeah, community is really important. But kind of touching on that, what's kind of funny is you mentioned a lot of the luxury brands, and I feel like what they all have is that experience aspect allocated to it, right? Like when you mentioned the Four Seasons, you just picture a nice, relaxing experience. When you think of jumping in a Ferrari or something like that, it's a feeling you get. And I think that's what I was really trying to portray. But with
every luxury has its own audience, right? I mean, there's a certain kind of person that drives a Ferrari, but there's another kind of person who drives a Hummer, right? So yes. They have all built their own community, their own niche around their product, right? So how does that happen?
Yeah, so I think it's something that I'm honestly still constantly learning, but I know as of lately, definitely I think using your personal platform to build, and this is something that I don't do enough of, to be honest, but using your personal platform to kind of build that community and answer questions, right? I think your friends and your family will kind of be the most honest. But it's amazing. And even just from our relationship, right, how you're not that far away. If you think of the magnifying aspect of everyone knows other people as well and other people as well, and it magnifies really quickly. And so, Facebook groups is something that I've seen to be quite amazing with building a community. And then you kind of own that audience as well. And providing value, I think, is a great way to build a community. Instead of trying to sell your product right away, I think building a community, asking other people's opinions is really important. And something that I've touched on lately, which is very interesting, and I think it's quite new, is most people when they run ads, they'll focus on the copy and the image, right? They don't think of building the community. And I've seen a lot of aspects where ads will perform very well just based off a couple people commenting, right? And when you get organic conversations around, like obviously involved in your ad, your CPC goes down and everything like that. But at the same time, you start getting, a real answers to your question and bringing people from outside into your community. And obviously I think when I think of community, I think of like email marketing and building your subscribers and your lists like that. And what I'm still trying to learn and kind of innovate is jumping a little bit deeper and trying to build a community on like different platforms. And I think it's very important to do, obviously, while you're growing a company, but at the very beginning as well, to understand if there's actually a need and a want there for your product, and getting feedback, right? Is, I'm thinking about this design. What does everyone think? And try and get a few feedback, then tweak it, right? That's where execution comes into play. Then actually change it, then post again. What do you guys think of this? And then people will feel like they're connected to the brand, right? Like he listened to my feedback.
It's about engaging.
Right. Exactly.
By the way, as we speak, I got a really interesting question for you. What if TikTok was present when you started this brand? How would have your brand grown?
That would have been interesting, that would have been interesting. And one thing I always think of, which is crazy, is because we both lived through the creation of Instagram and everything.
Right.
And obviously I was on it, but for personal use back then. And I was like, man, if I could have just started, if I could be where I'm at now back in 2012, things would be really different. But what always keeps me, optimistic is there's going to be new things to come. Right. A few years ago, I wasn't aware of TikTok, and now look where it is. Right. So I'm very optimistic that there's going to be new platforms in the future. And with our knowledge in the space and that we continue to grow and that we do it every day, I mean, I'm hoping for whatever platform's next, we're definitely gonna crush it.
Exactly. We want to ponder on that opportunity. And how would you like to tell our audience, how can, as an e-commerce brand, they leverage TikTok in the US market? Yeah.
So I've spent a good amount of time on TikTok, but probably not as much to consider myself like an expert in any means. What I've seen though is the user generated content, with your iPhone, filming just organic stuff and volume, right? So it's kind of a numbers game in a way. I think the more content you put out there, the more possibility there is and the more eyeballs you're going to get. And so even if people are always wanting to go viral, and I think it's like, even if you're getting 100 views a video, put out 10 videos, right? That's 1,000 views. You're just going to have to increase your quantity a little bit more and be more creative. It's one of those things where the platform works, there's people on it. If your video is good enough, people are gonna like it and it's gonna go. And so for me, I just think it's about testing the content and really just staying consistent with it. I've helped the company in kind of the construction space for I think the past year now, a little over a year. And it's one of those things, they had 100 followers, and this is on Instagram actually, but it was consistent. I set up a plan that I was like, we'll be posting, it was a post, a reel every single day. It took about 8 or 9 months until the first video went to 6.5 million views. Wow. But it took that long of posting every single day. And, some would get 100, some would get 20, some would get 10, and it would vary, but it took that long before one of the videos just ran to 6 million views. And that was a little eye-opening for me because I don't even think I've had that level of consistency with any of my own companies. It's easy to be consistent for a while and then maybe you forget a day, or maybe because I had constant reminders every single day and roughly around the same time as well. I think it's the consistency, and you're obviously growing your audience, you're liking, you're following, you're doing those things, but making sure that your content is getting out there. I also think the algorithm sees that as well. Right. I don't know. It's interesting because we're in the paid marketing space, but one thing that I made sure not to do with them is run any paid ads. And I just had this thought that I was like, as soon as you pay for ads, I was like, I wonder if Facebook sees that and is like, okay, he's willing to pay, we'll let him pay, right? Because with them, we kept getting offers, probably once a week, another $5 or $10 ad credit, Yeah, and they kept trying to throw it at me, and I'm just like, wow. And then it took that long of just organic growth, and now, to be fair, it's like it's a construction company. I mean, there's nothing. I thought more people would like looking at nice things. They're just doing manual labor, but I think it's the organic growth that I think is king, and I think everyone knows that, but they just don't have the patience to get there. So
Right.
it's important to stay consistent and put out quantity.
By the way,
Another
a last
keyword is
question
patience.
related to TikTok. I was reading somewhere on LinkedIn that a bill has been passed to ban TikTok. So is it true? And if it's true, what will happen to the brands that are living on TikTok these days?
That's an interesting one. So I haven't heard too much about that. I'm not necessarily opposed to it though. If from a business point of view, it's nice to have an avenue that is a little more viral than Instagram or Facebook, for example. But I don't necessarily love their whole terms and conditions as far as what they can see and look and control on your phone and everything like that. It's tough though, I think, in this day and space, this day and age, it's like the privacy that you have is, is difficult. So it's hard to get around that. And what was the last part of the question really quick? You said, and what?
So what will happen to the e-commerce brands that are living on it? So I have seen like one of our prospects that we were talking about. So they were purely just on TikTok. So I told them that you need to go on other channels. What happens if TikTok gets banned tomorrow?
Yes, yeah, and that's what because that's a good point, and that kind of comes into what I want to touch on is like owning your audience and your customer base, and that's why I think it's really important to have your email subscriber list and the website visits and building your Facebook groups that you can own, because as soon as one of these platforms go down, I mean, it's got to be tough if that's your full business, right? Because you can go from 100 to 0 really quickly. And so I think it's very important if you're getting those leads from TikTok, you're nurturing them in some kind of way. You're having them subscribe to your email list. You're giving them value and offers that allows them to stay around a little bit more, because I've even seen some influencers, right, where, and that's another avenue where you reach out to a person with a lot of Instagram followers or something like that, but they could have a lot more on TikTok. And it's important to disperse your audience as much as possible, because you can't rely your full business and your livelihood, right? You got to feed and have a house over your head from just one platform,
Right.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's just kind of, it comes back to the community of kind of owning your audience, building your own subscriber base. So if anything happens to TikTok, if all your subscribers are on your email list, you can still send them offers and sell products and keep everything moving without relying on one platform.
I think, Anmol, this is a lesson for everyone that you shouldn't keep all your eggs in the same basket.
Right. It is.
I think that's what Brand's trying to say here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is one of the most important lessons. So like
and what's
now,
too is, sorry, really quickly, is like another thing that I've thought of with this other company I'm working with is kind of the same thing, is all the eggs in one basket. And I think what's important is, even if things are going really good with all your eggs in one basket, right? Maybe TikTok's killing it, you're doing really well. It's sometimes important to take a step back and think like, okay, if I didn't have this right now, what would I be doing? And I did that the other day with, I have a very good opportunity going. And I was like, okay, let's just say if this wasn't going to go through, what would I be doing on a daily basis? And that's when started to break down other daily tasks to make sure you're still staying very well-rounded and you're not narrow-minded, focused on one avenue. Just wanted to touch on that. Yeah.
That is really important. Even I was like that, but then Ashwin came in and he asked me that you should have an open mind towards Yeah. It was one of the
It's always better to have a different perspective. And Anmol and I, we make it a point to contradict each other. Even if we're agreeing, when we both agree with each other, then there must be something wrong.
Yeah.
Then one has
We debate a lot.
It's important though to kind of have the controversy and the give and take in a relationship, and that's one thing that I really love about my own personal brother is I'm super optimistic, and I've changed in the past. It's important to be, but he's been more on the pessimistic side of like I have a new idea or I have a new this, and he'll be like, make sure you're thinking about these 3 things. And I always kind of like, said he was just like bringing down my vibe, but it's important to think through those things. And I think the older I've gotten, I've been a little more methodical on how I execute. I'm definitely someone that I'm more of an action person, and I learn from doing. If you tell me the stove's hot, I'm going to touch it and see how hot, everyone's definition of hot's different, right? So I want to find out for myself, and it's how I learn. But I've definitely started to process things a little more and think of the worst case scenario, right? And then not only like that's where people go wrong, not think of the worst case scenario in a negative way, but think of the worst case scenario and how you'd protect yourself against that, right? So if this were to happen, if TikTok were to go down, what other avenues do I have? What else could I do? What funding am I allocating around it, right? How am I attracting my audience? And then you can start to tweak things and prevent yourself from worst case scenarios. Yeah.
Right. No, interesting. That's really interesting. I think our e-commerce audience will love this podcast. Now, like talking a bit about a partnership, that's where I would like to take this conversation. So like Brandon, I would love you to talk about, a little bit how this partnership thing got started between us.
Yeah. So, so basically I was starting with Rose Gold. What was that?
And where do we want to take it?
To the moon, we want to help a lot.
To the moon.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, starting with Rose Gold Apparel as a young entrepreneur, I was just on social media and doing digital marketing for myself. Right. And that's one of those things where I learned from doing, because I was passionate about it, because it was my own company. I was trying to learn and do as much as I could. And so I actually built a lot of knowledge in kind of the digital marketing space that I really wasn't aware of, because I was trying to grow a fashion company. And then I moved states after graduation. I started working with another company and helped scale them quite well. And I was doing a little more on their operational sides of things. So that's when I started to implement more of like the email marketing and the affiliate outreach and, helping kind of with SEO and retailers and other avenues of marketing in a whole. And then when I moved back to Dallas just a couple of years ago, that's when it all kind of came around, where I had people reaching out to me, kind of friends, family, acquaintances asking for, they have a little store, or they had a friend that was trying to grow a website and they knew that I knew how to build Shopify stores or how to market. And that's when I was like, this is actually taking up a lot of my time. I mean, I was just doing it for free, just hopping on calls with people and giving them tips and tricks. I'm like, maybe I should go into kind of like consulting or something like that.
Sure.
Then I had a buddy that was like, hey man, I'll give you $500 just to make this quick little website for me. It'd really help out. And so I kind of did that. And then I really just enjoy it. I'm a very creative, kind of guy. And so I love kind of designing, creating, and obviously just helping other people. And that's when the light bulb went off of like, maybe I should actually do this kind of full time. And then that's, I'm very lucky because when I looked at some YouTube videos and stuff, right, I'm like, how to grow a digital marketing agency. And a lot of them start with, you need to have reviews, you need to have testimonials, you need to have kind of, that little network. I was lucky enough where it actually kind of fell onto me. I didn't even think of it that way. I already had testimonials and reviews and people coming to me. And so I was really lucky that way. And I'm glad, I absolutely love what I do. And that's when I started to become a little bit overwhelmed with, I'm maxed out with, a handful of clients, right? And so that's when I was thinking of how I can start delegating and looking into kind of delegating some of the work, as well as keeping that quality control, because I didn't just want to hire some VA through, Upwork or something like that to work with me, because I'm very strong on my reputation and my word. And so if I tell a client that it's going to be done a certain way, I take it on myself to be done exactly how I say it. Otherwise, I just don't feel right charging them, right? And so delegating was a hard hurdle for me to get over. And that's when I was like, I started thinking of all my resources and my network. And I think it's really important to touch on your network. And that's when I reached out to you. And obviously we stayed in contact, right? So it wasn't anything out of the blue, but had that conversation with you. And then now we're just in the process, right, of dealing with a couple clients and seeing how it works. And you guys do a great job. So now it's just finding, better clients and scaling up from here. So it's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we will be going to the moon together. So for our audience, our US
To the moon it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So to tell our audience, our US office is being handled by Brandon, and it's TRG Cropsticle. It will be live very soon on our website, as well as we will be seeing a lot more of us on social media as well. And with this partnership, we will be, dealing with Indian clients and more of US clients as well. So that's how, that thing began. And we had a lot of conversation with Brandon, and, we look forward to build this together. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah. No, it's exciting. And what's nice too is like what we do is I love it, but we ultimately can't help people. And sometimes I think back of me, when I was in college trying to start a company, and if I could have found someone like me to help me, because I ran into this agency, and to be honest, I mean, he just sucked me dry of all my resources. He charged me a crazy amount per month, and then I literally had a little bit left over for ad spend. And so
It's very interesting that the story you just told, I totally relate to it. Like how I got started is my father hired an agency and they did the same with him. No results delivered. So it
yeah,
fascinates me. And like, it was meant to be that we come together.
yeah, I think so. And I think that's what really kind of drives me is seeing someone with an idea, but they don't know how to execute, and that's where we can step in and really help them. And obviously it's results driven, right? It's like
Yeah.
the better we do, the better their company performs, the more we all make. I mean, I feel like it's a fun and collaborative environment to really provide value to people. And in my opinion, that's the best way to obviously grow and build your network, is just providing value,
Right. Totally, totally. So, like Brandon, I would like to, share some words how it has been. You have worked with us on a few clients. So, how was your experience with us? Like, how you
I
feel
mean,
now?
yeah, you guys have been great. I think, I mean, your ads performed, super well. And the main thing for me is the communication and honesty, right? So what I really loved is everything I asked up front. I mean, you delivered obviously efficiently and effectively. But at the same time, I love the transparency. And I think that's also what's going to be nice moving forward with our partnership is the communication, and that's something that I feel like other agencies that try to outsource to different VAs and everything, that's the little piece they're like lacking. And not only our communication, but our relationship. So in my opinion, I feel very confident, talking to a client, because I know you personally as well as I know your work, and you do a good job, obviously, in digital marketing, but you're also an honest and, good communicator up front. So I think it's
And that is where the experience lies, right?
That's where the experience is.
exactly. Yep.
I think that's the main reason we got connected and started out working together, because
Right.
our principles match, and we
Yeah.
know
Right.
I know what kind of a person you are, you know what kind of person I am, what kind of person Ashwin is. So that's why it happened. TRG X Propsicle, and it's going to be one of those legendary partnerships. I really hope that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think one thing for people to take away too is, obviously we did come together and partner, but it's one of those things. It also takes time to kindle how we work together and bringing in clients, and that's one thing that we're obviously still figuring out right now, and that we've done right. But bringing in clients and offering smaller projects and making sure that is executed well, and then scaling to bigger projects and bigger projects. And we have a few things in the work that we talked about the other day, right? That we're going to slowly start increasing bigger projects, and to where it's not going to be overnight, but hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, we're doing bigger and better things,
We will. Of course, we will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the joke, right? We always we're gonna meet in Dubai for New Year's, so still
That's gonna happen soon, I guess.
that'll be fun.
Yeah. So Ashwin, I think it's time that.
Oh yes, yes. It was so interesting. We just lost track of time.
No worries.
Right.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I don't know if there's any like kind of like last words or tips and tricks, but I think out of this conversation, right, it's make sure to maximize your network, as you never know what lies kind of in your network, and stay consistent. I think it's really important, and I think in this day and age, everyone's looking for instant gratification. But if you stay consistent and you provide value and you're honest to people, and maximize your network, it'll come around tenfold. And that's what I believe.
Really
Great.
amazing.
That's a great note to end it all. Right.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
Great.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. And obviously we'll be in touch soon, right? So
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes.
So
Appreciate
thank you
it.
so much, our audience, for watching this podcast. If you like it, do share it with your friends. And stay tuned for more episodes with Brandon. We will be making a full series of episodes with Brandon where we will be talking more about of how we are working, what we are doing, and what is happening in digital marketing. So we would
Awesome.
love to have you back. Thank you so much for watching.
I appreciate you guys.
Great.
Have a good one.
Have
Talk
a
to
good
you soon.
day. Talk to you soon.
Bye.